guys, how we doing? Jack Bennett here from iCanPlayDrums.com. Today we're going to be checking out the basics and the beginnings of learning a basic disco beat or a basic dance beat, which is what I was basically playing there in the intro video. So as you can hear, it's got a really driving 4 on the floor feel, what we call 4 on the floor, which is just playing the bass drum on all 4 beats of the bar. Really strong backbeat on 2 and 4, and we've got this open-closed thing happening with the hi-hat. So in the first lesson, we're just going to look at the basic coordination of all of that, and then in the second and the third lessons we're going to look at some variations that you can do, playing 16th note patterns on the hi-hat, and then also adding in some snare figures as well. Alright, so the first thing is you've got to be able to produce a really solid and consistent sound with your right foot, because that is what's driving the music. Now when you play 4 on the floor, there's a couple of different ways that you can play it depending on the style that you're playing. So if you're playing something that is like a commercial modern dance music, kind of like what I was just playing then, you want to have a really solid sound, okay? So quite a thick, loud sound, and the tempo has to be absolutely spot on all the time. Can't speed up and slow down and all that sort of stuff, all right? So you know, this is one of your go-to money beats. You'll get really good at this over time, the more gigs that you do. So much of today's music is dance-oriented, and you'll just get really strong with that right foot and really consistent with the tempo as well, which is very important. Now, another way that you can play 4 on the floor is when you play it in jazz. Sometimes you might be playing what we call feathering the bass drum, which is you've got your jazz ride pattern here and your hi-hat on 2 and 4. And then playing just nice and lightly underneath that. All right, now that was more introduced when, you know, in the early years of jazz to help give the upright bass, acoustic bass, a little bit more projection. A lot of band leaders wanted the drummer to play 4 on the floor just to help project that pulse a little bit more, because the time feel otherwise is very much cymbal driven. So they wanted a little bit more bottom end to the groove, and that was employed. But you don't play it. Right, you don't play it at the sort of volume that you might for today's more modern commercial music. All right, so there's a couple of different ways that you can do it, which is often the case. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do, and it sounds really simple, and it is, but we're going to play 2 and 4 on the snare, but you've got to make sure that when you land 2 and 4, that you don't flam between the bass drum and the snare. So you've got to make sure that you're landing exactly in unison. All right, so you get 1, 3. It can be really easy, especially when you start adding extra things on the hi-hat and whatnot, to kind of get like, you know, those little splits, those kind of groove killers. So try and avoid that when you're playing. So start out really slow and get it really accurate and really solid. All right, next let's have a look at what's happening with the hi-hat, because from a coordination point of view, this is probably the hardest bit. You'll notice that we are opening the hi-hat on all 4 beats, all right, on the in-between quavers or the in-between 8th notes of all 4 beats. And so you're playing 8th notes with the right stick, going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. But on the in-between quavers, you're opening the hi-hat, all right? So we're now getting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. All right. Now, of course, there are different parts of the hi-hat that you can play it on. The way that I typically do it is I'll play on the edge of the hi-hat, okay? It means I don't have to hit quite as hard, and the hi-hats will really speak quite clearly because you are hitting on the edge. If I'm playing on the top, I'll typically do that more if I'm, you know, wanting to get more articulate sticking, like, or maybe jazz, like stirring on the hi-hats. But for this sound, I want that thicker sound, so I'm going shoulder of the stick or shank of the stick on the edge. Okay, so it now becomes more like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And so at this point, if you're like a beginner drummer or a low intermediate drummer, getting the coordination of all 3 limbs to line up is going to be a challenge. So start out really slow. Make sure, you know, that you can really visualize in your head, or you've got it written on paper, exactly what is supposed to land with what as far as the different limbs. So we have this now. and practice at a variety of tempos. So here's the thing that we kind of forget about when we're learning 3-limb exercises that involve the hi-hat. What we are focusing on is hitting with our right hand, our right foot, and our left hand. But actually our left foot is possibly one of the most involved parts of the whole thing. Yet you won't see that written as far as like X's on the bottom of the stave, which is typically how we notate playing hi-hat with foot. You won't actually see that written in the groove at all. So, but the opening and closing, the very exact time that you open and the very exact time that you shut off that hi-hat sound is what's going to make sure that these notes are even. Obviously, you've got to be hitting them in time with your right hand, but if you're not getting the open and the close in the right spot, it's not going to sound any good either. Okay, so the left foot is very much involved in this. What we realize is that the feet are actually playing at the same time. They're both going down at the same time. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I play heel up with my bass drum, so my heel is going to be up on my right foot, but with my left foot, my left heel is going to be down because I raise the hi-hats by lifting the ball of the foot, and in order to do that, my heel stays down. So because we're playing the feet together, it means that in between the beats, when the feet come up, the hi-hats are going to be open, and that's when you can hit them, and then they'll close again to stop that sound at the same time that you hit them. So it's really important actually at this point that you can actually play both feet together and the hi-hat with the right hand all at the same time, like this. If you're getting like or something like that, again, it's not quite there yet. You've got to make sure that it's landing together. And that'll just ensure that you get a nice even groove. So that's how you play a basic disco groove.